In a nutshell, about literature with Joseph Pearce. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I am Franczak and this is part 34 of In a Nutshell about literature with Joseph Pearce. In the previous episode we started our discussion of Romeo and Juliet, and today we are going to continue our conversation and talk about three different interpretations of this famous play: fatalistic, feudal, and cautionary, or in other words, moral. Which one is the true one? You suggest that there are three possible ways of interpreting Romeo and Juliet. The first one is fatalistic, the second is feudal, as you say, and the third is a cautionary or a moral reading. So let's explain these three possible readings to our viewers.
Well, obviously we talked about fatalism a little bit earlier with respect to the Greeks. So that's, is all of this is something sort of set in motion when Romeo and Juliet first meet each other, that that after that everything is bound to happen. There's nothing anybody can do. All right. The word fate is used once or twice in it. So if you wanted to be very selective in the way you read the play, you could make a case. But it'd be a very weak case because someone else could very quickly quote other parts of the play, which would prove that that is an incorrect reading. So I don't think the fatalistic reading holds much water. So the real battle to the death, if you like, is between the romantic reading or the feudal reading, as I called it there, which I should say something about, and should we say the philosophically realistic reading, the Christian reading of the play. Now, as regards feudal, I'm taking liberties etymologically. I should say that because the word feudal doesn't actually have anything to do with feud. It's to do with fief and the way that the feudal system worked economically and politically. But it's a pun. The only excuse I have is it's a pun. Because what I'm talking about is the fact it's all about the parents, it's all about the families, it's all about the feud between the parents, and the stupid adults are to blame, and the kids are all right, and there's nothing wrong with the kids, and their love is pure. All you need is love. Love is all you need. And if Romeo and Juliet could just be allowed to love, everything would be okay, right? But that's the romantic reading, and it's quite frankly nonsense.
Yes, so you opt for this reading, which is cautionary, yes?
Exactly, cautionary reading.
Yes, or moral reading. And it seems that nowadays the dominating, prevailing interpretation of this play is the second one, which is like Romeo and Juliet is a pioneering work which happened to be written before the sorrows of young Werther, right? Because it looks like that. And we have this quite popular film in the past with Leonardo DiCaprio, this romantic love, and unfortunately it cannot be fulfilled and end well, and so on and so on. Okay. So you suggest that this third way is the correct one, which, as we know, probably will disappoint many readers or possible readers of this play. You also indicated that this play was written around the time of Merchant of Venice. So the same as in that play, the moral theme seems to be important, right?
Yeah, the whole if you know that's the other thing I also look at when I I try to read the plays. When try to read literature as a whole, as you know, we've had these discussions, what I call authorialism. So to try to see them objectively through the eyes of the author as far as possible. So as well as trying to see the play through the eyes of Shakespeare, which means we need to know as much about Shakespeare as we can and about the times in which Shakespeare lived as we can. Also knowing in what order the plays were written, because
Mhm.
if he writes a play about the same sort of time he writes another play, then these are what are the ideas in his head. So it's appropriate to see Romeo and Juliet in the light of the Merchant of Venice, or to see the Merchant of Venice in the light of Romeo and Juliet. And what we see about Merchant of Venice, of course, is that the whole test of the caskets, which sets up the moral dynamic of the work, is that to love is to rationally choose to lay down your life for the beloved. It's not about feeling, it's not about passion, not about the war for power or wealth or money, not about the gratification of desire in whatever form that might take. It's about rationally choosing to give your life to the other person self-sacrificially. So if that's the moral dynamic of the Merchant of Venice, then we should expect to see somehow that sort of playing itself out in Romeo and Juliet, and it is. But what the only difference is what Shakespeare does in Romeo and Juliet. Say, well, what happens if we don't choose the lead casket? If we don't choose to lay down our lives for the beloved, to die to ourselves? What if we instead we choose to lay down the life of the beloved for ourselves? What happens then? What if it's all about erotic desire, erotic passion, and reason pandering will? So, in other words, we abandon our reason to follow our desire. And what happens? And in Romeo and Juliet, we see what happens, and it's not pretty.
Mhm. You say that actually, practically from the beginning of the play, the main theme is, as you put it, false and fallacious love. So, what are, if you can say, a few of these indicators that this is the main theme of Romeo and Juliet?
Well, in one sense, formally, we can see a satire upon Petrarchan sonnets and Petrarchan love, this amour courtois, this courtly love, where we have this desire for the woman, for the lady. Often it's an adulterous desire because the lady is unavailable because she's married, right? But that doesn't stop us desiring her. So they had this cult of the sonnet, and certainly when Shakespeare was writing Romeo and Juliet, the 1590s, was the golden age of the sonnet, and this was the fashionable literary form. So Shakespeare satirizes that, and especially and ironically, during the first kiss scene, when Romeo and Juliet first meet, and they have this exchange, of sort of a quatrain each, or or sometimes a couple of lines each. This exchange, but the 14 lines make up a perfect sonnet. And so Shakespeare is basically saying, he's lampooning with this idea of love being something, that it's all about my feelings for the beloved and unrequited passion and this desire to have this unrequited passion uh, consummated passionately, right? So there is, if you like, this beautiful, which means, by the way, it's that exchange is beautiful. Shakespeare composes a beautiful sonnet, which is also a dialogue between the lovers, right? So he's having great fun. He's showing his genius. It's satire, it's irony, but he's really showing that this is not a good way of conducting ourselves morally.
Mhm. Thank you for watching. If you haven't seen the previous episodes yet, please check the In a Nutshell About Literature playlist. You can watch them individually or as 5 long compilation videos. And please remember, you can support the development of this channel in several ways. Subscribe to the channel, like this video and leave a comment. Share the video by copying the link and posting it on our social media. And finally, support us financially by buying me a virtual cup of coffee or making a donation. Please check the options below the video where you'll find links to two services, Buy Coffee Too and Zrzutka. Thank you once again and see you in the next episodes of In a Nutshell About Literature with Joseph Pearce. God bless you and a very Merry Christmas to all of you.